Two videos ago, we have talked about how to create a Golang application with Fiber. Then in the last video, we have talked about how to integrate our Swagger documentation with our application. Now in this video, we will talk about how to integrate our application with PostgreSQL with using GORM library. Okay, let's go back to our application. As you can remember, we had an endpoint. We had a get endpoint that getting order. Of course, they weren't actually getting an order or creating order. We will just created endpoints and integrated Swagger. But now we will really create order and get that order from DB. For local development, I will use Postgres official Docker image. So you can use this as well with this command. But I would suggest you to add port as well so you can access from local like this at -p and the port number like me. For example, I have integrated Postgres in my local and right now I have two tables and I'm accessing it with 45432. That kind of port number. Yes, it's hard to tell. This is our Postgres and how we will create the orders and get the orders. For that process, we will use ORM library called GORM. GORM is a full-featured ORM library which has a lot of features, so you definitely need to check out their documentation. I will put the link in the description for the Postgres and for the GORM as well, so you can check out and see what features this GORM has. In this video, we will create orders and get orders and see how we can use relationships. So I just showed you some tables that I have created, so I will talk about it a little bit. In this application, we have an order API, so we will have orders which they have an ID that is auto-incremented. We have shipment number. We have cargo ID, which cargo. We have is shipped, which will not shipped in this video. And we have created that, so when this data is created. And we have line items, so which items this order has. It can be more than one. So this item can have a product ID, which product it is, which seller, and the order ID for the relationship. And we will set the relationship with GORM in our application. So let's go back to code and let's pull the GORM library. Okay, so for that, I will go to the terminal and get the GORM from here. Yep. And we will need to integrate not SQLite driver, but we have Postgres. So I'll just write Postgres here. Okay, great. Okay, now we can connect to our DB with GORM. So I'm going to main and this is great, yes. This is proper. So I will need to create a connection string in here. And I already had, so I will just copy paste because I'm lazy. This is our connection string. This is localhost Postgres and my secret password is actually default config for official Postgres Docker image. So this is all same thing for you. And then we will create our connection with GORM and it's just controlling if we have created our connection successfully or not. Okay, now we have created our DB connection. Now we need to create classes that will use this DB. So in this video, we will use controller service repository layered architecture. So we need to create some services and repository classes. So let's first create our foldering and empty classes and repository. Like we need to have an order service and order repository. Then we will inject our DB to our repository. Okay, so we have controller and model. So we can create a domain folder in here. And we can create a persistence for repository. We can create a services for our services, which we will have order service. And we can have an entity classes. So we can declare our order and order line item entities, these two. Okay, great. First, let's create our entities. They are the simple one. So we have an order. Yep. Okay, we have an order struct. Yes. So we have ID, which is long, and which column it corresponds in DB. It is ID. So we need to declare it like column is ID. And this is primary key DB. So we need to set as primary key. Okay. And we had shipment number, cargo ID, etc. And we had created date, created at, yes, which is at time. which is created at, yes. So created at is actually a special column in GORM. Whenever you create a data, created at column sets automatically by GORM, so we don't need to set it manually. And our second table is order line items, so I will create that as well. Order line item. Oh, let's set this as order. Okay. So I will just copy here. Okay, so we have order line item. We don't have this, and this. So we have created our order and order line item. In order to create a relationship with ORMs, with GORM, we need to declare our order line item as well. Order line items. Order line item. And this is a relationship, not column. So, and we have order ID in here as a reference key. So we need to declare it as reference key as order ID. Yes. So it knows that the order ID is the key in here. And when we get a data, when we get the order, if we include the order line item, it will create the connection with the order line items. Okay, we have created our entities. Great. Now we can create a repository, which can have order repository. Repository. Our repository will get DB connection, so it will have a DB. GORM.db, yes, and for injection, let's create our interface as well. Yes, so we will have a create order and get order. We have two endpoints. First, let's start with the create order. So I will just say create order, which will get an order, entity.order, no, just order, yes. And it can return the created order as well, so we can get the generated ID from the DB as well. That order, great. Now let's create a function so we can create an order repository in the main file, and as new order repository. What do we have? We need to have a DB, which is a GORM DB. We will return a brand new order repository. So return an order repository. Our DB is DB. Oh, yes. Okay, and it says, and it gives an error and say, you didn't implement it. Yes, he's right. You're absolutely right. We can say repo, order repository, yes. We will create order in a second. So I will just leave it as is, or we can just create now. So we have our repo, we can access our DB, and in order to create a data with GORM, we can use the create function, and we need to give our entity. So our entity is order. We can get the result. It returns the result, and if our result has an error, we can panic, like what the hell is happening, and we can check if it is not nil or not, and if it is nil, we can panic because something is wrong. So we can just say result.error, and if everything is okay and we have created our data successfully, we can just return our data, our order. Why we are returning the order? We already get it as a parameter because our ID is generated automatically in DB. So in this order, this order will have our ID as well. Okay, great. Okay, now let's add DB to our repository. Says in here, let's say it's repositories, not here. Here is good. Repositories. Yep. And let's delete this for the sake of simplification. all age, we don't need it. We can delete it from here as well. Okay, back to our main Go. We have our repository, and we can just say persistence dot new order repository with our DB. Great. We have our order repository. Now we can inject our repository to our service. So we need to create our service class, right? So we have created our order repository. Now we can inject our order repository, our order service struct, which we will create in a second. We have our order repository, our service. Yep, our order service is a struct which have a create order. What we will get, it will actually get create order request. Actually, it is not a request, which is actually, I will just rename it as create order command. Yes, do refactor, sir. Thank you. Now, actually, we need a lot of properties to create an order. So we don't have country code or age. I will just delete that. We have still shipment number. What did we have? Yes. And we had is shipped. No, is shipped is default false when we have create our order. We don't get the created at as well. Okay, we just need these two, and we need to have our line items from our request as well. So our line items is order line items, which is actually a command as well. So we can create order line item command struct, and our line item has product ID and seller ID. We don't need to give ID, which is created automatically, and order ID is actually the reference key, and the GORM library will set that value as well for us. So we just need our product ID and seller ID. Great, now we can just say this is a list of create line item command. Okay, now back to order service. This is not the create order, this is our struct. So our struct will have order repository, order repository, yes, order repository. Great, now let's create our interface. Yep, this will have create order function, and it will get a command, which is a create order command, which we didn't rename the file, so let's rename that as well. Okay, create order command. Great, and it will return our order entity dot order. Yes, so now we can write our function to create order service for injection. New order service, which will get order repository, right? It needs to order repository, yes, repository, and it will return our order service. Okay, return order service, and our repository is order repository, and it will just say implement missing errors. Yes, we have an order service. I will just say service, order service. We have a command. Don't panic, please. We will just create our service. We don't need a rush. So our repository needs to have an order entity, but we have order command. So we need to actually map our create order command to order entity, right? And let's make that mapping in our create order command struct inside of it. So we will just say map to order, which is actually an extension function for command, create order command, and it will return an order. So it's dot order. Okay, so it will return a new order. What it needs issued, which is false for creation. It needs cargo ID, which command has it. Yes, it needs shipment number. It is command dot shipment number, and it is line items. So ID and create ID will ID will be created in DB, and create at will be generated with GORM, as I said. So we need order line items, but we don't have it. So we need to actually map our create order line item comments to order line items as well. So we need an items, which is entity.line items. And if our comment has order line items, if it's not nil, so we can loop over the line items and create that and add them to our items array. So we can create a for function, and for every comment, order line item comment, we can create an order line item and add that to our items array. Yes, that is good. So our for range, we will have for comment dot line items. Yes, we don't need index, and it is item. It is line item comment. Yes. For every line item, we will just append it to our items. We will create a new order line item. Yes. So we have order ID is generated. So we have seller ID for line item comment dot seller ID, and we just need product ID. Product ID. Great. We don't need this. Okay, now we can set our line items as well. Items. Now we have function that map our order comment to order, so we can use it in here. So let's say map to order, and our comment is comment. Yes. Okay. This is our order. We can give it to our create order function, and we can return our create order from here. Now we have created our service as well, our create order function. Now let's inject our order service. So we have our repository. So let's create a services section or region. If you are coming from .NET like me, we had region in there. It is like that. So we have new order service, and this is our repository. Okay, now we can create our order service and give it our controller. We can give it our create order function, and we can call it, right? So let's go to our create order function. What do we have in here? We have orders. We are creating our command. We are validating it. Okay, now in here we can call our function. So we can get the order service from here. Order service. Let's call it order service. Service dot create order. Let's give our command, which is request in here. Maybe we can give it as create order command as well. Okay. This is our create order. Yes. And we can return our order here. Create order. Cool. Great. Now we can get our main and give it our order service in here. And I think we are done for our create order. So let's test it. Hope it will work in the first section. No, it's not. Okay, now it works. I just ran GORM and tidy because we have pulled some new libraries like GORM. Okay, now we have our 3001. Let's go to Swagger and refresh it. Okay, we have our order request, but we don't have our new line items, and these are old because we didn't actually update our Swagger. So swag init and swag format. Okay, now let's run it again. Refresh. Yes, we have cargo ID. Oops, what cargo ID? No. We have line items. Order, line, not just line items. Yes. Okay, so let's get here and update our Swagger and run again. We can sometimes do typos like this, right? We all did this. We have cargo ID, line items, and shipment number. Cool. Okay, now let's try it out. We need some GUID. Generate. Okay. This is a great site, by the way. I will put it in the description as well. We have some product IDs, seller IDs, and shipment numbers. 63. And great. And we did something wrong. Okay, I found the problem. This need to have actually address of the order, not the order entity reference, not order entity value, but the reference. This is a mistake that I probably do a lot. Okay, let's execute again. Okay, and yes, we have created our order. We have shipment number, we have created that. As I said, it is actually generated by the GORM, which has updated it and soft deleted as well. I will probably talk about it in the next video. So we have line item, product ID. So let's check it out from the DB. So we have 9 rows and 10. Okay, this is our new order. And we have our line items. Great. We have created our orders. Now we will get this data in our get endpoint with our order ID. Now let's get to here. Let's start from the repository. I just love to start from the deep. Yeah, I'm just used to it. Move it to here. So we have a get order by ID, which will have an ID long, and it will return the order. Great. Now we can create our function repo out of repository for get order by ID, which will get an ID to return order. Great. So we need an empty order entity. So var order. Yes. So how we can get our data with GORM? So we can use repo.db. First, if you have a .NET background like me and used Entity Framework before, you are used to use first or default function. It's like that. So it will get the first data, which will have always just one data because we are getting the data with ID. So we will assign that data to our order with our ID, which is with our ID, and it will get our result. Yes. And when we call this data, it will just return the order. But we actually want to include our order line item as well. So we will just say preload. It is actually eager loading order line items. So it will select that data and inject it as well. If you want to dive deep about eager loading, you can just read it about that in here. Preloading, eager loading. It is like that. When I'm getting the users, if I preload the orders as well, it will get that data as well. So it will integrate it. So I preloaded my line items as well. Let's check if our result has any error. If our result.error has any problem, and if it is an error that is type of not found, it's not that important. So let's check it if our error is not found error, not found, GORM not found, error record not found, then we can just return nil. It's not important. But if we have something else, then we can just panic. Okay, if everything is okay, then we can just return our cool. Great. Now we have written our function. We can get this function from our service. So let's write it as well. Okay, here we have our get order by ID, which will get an ID, and it will return our order. Yes. Let's write it. So it is it is an extension function of order service. I'm still saying extension function order. Get order by ID. Yes, we have ID, and we will return an order entity. Order. Okay, we can just call our function, which is service.repo.get order by ID. Yes, and that's it for the service. Now let's call our function from our controller, which is by code. No, let's change it by ID. Yes, to refactor, sir. Thank you so much. It is ID. So ID is string, so we need to first convert it to as long. So first get our ID params with ID, order ID. Now let's convert it to long. So string convert. Yes, and to parse int. Yes. So this is our order ID. Our base is 10 and bit size is 64. Cool. This is our ID. This is our ID. And if we have any error, then we can just return a bad request. So we can just say if error is not nil, we can return a status of bad request with saying, we can say order ID is not valid. So we are returning bad request, so we need to actually add that to here as well. Yes, so let's say it is a failure 400. It is a string. Yes. Okay. Now we can get our function. So we can say, oh, we don't have our service. So let's get our service as well. Service. Our order service dot get order by ID. Give it our ID. And this is our order. And if our order is nil, then we can just return a not found, right? Status not found with saying order not found. So we are sad that we couldn't find it. I'm really sad. Okay, and we can say we can return status okay with our order. Yes, what you're saying, oh, it is like this. Great. And we have a not found, so we can get that as well. So we have added order service to here, so let's add it to here, order service. Okay, now let's run it and see if we have any problem. I hope not. Oh, we have, because we haven't actually updated our Swagger. Swag init, swag format, and run again. Okay, now let's get to here and refresh. So which order we have created? We have created 27. Let's get that data. We need a quit. Okay, so we have our order code, not order code, but we have order ID. So we have something old in there, which is this. This is it. ID. This is like this as well. Getting order by ID. ID. Yep. Do you see any code in here? If you see, say it. Thank you. Yes. We have in here as well. I think that's it. Let's generate our Swagger and run it again. And yes, now it is ID. Great. Okay, we have our what did we have? We have 27. Yes, get the data, and yes, we have getted our data successfully. Great. So we are creating our order with GORM library in Postgres and getting that data from DB as well. Let's get our created data in here. So see once again, blah 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 bam bam. Okay. Oh, I'm in debug. Okay, we have created 28. Execute. Yes, and let's see it in there. DB 26. Cool. Great. As you can see, we have created our data and getting our data. So GORM library is a full-featured ORM library. In the next video, maybe we can talk about how we can use scopes and soft delete as well, things like that, and hooks. So we can explore the features of ORM. And that's it for today. We have integrated our application with PostgreSDB, with GORM library. We have created data and get data. In the next video, we will continue to work with GORM library more. So stay in tune. Thank you so much for watching. May the force be with you.